Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, dear friends, good morning. Thank you very much for coming to this final plenary session of the 15th World Forestry Congress. My name is Peter Choka and I'm the Associate Secretary General of this Congress. It's been a real pleasure to work with you throughout this week, throughout the last 4 days, which were indeed very intense, with lots of meetings from the morning till the late evening. And now we have left an almost impossible task for the last day, and that is summarizing the findings of all those discussions and all the wisdom that you have brought forward through them. We had almost 60 events, main events during the week, close to 150 side events, and not to mention the 1,000 contributions, written and posters and videos representing the wisdom that the forest sector owns all over the world. And now we need to try to summarize all these and bring it into an outcome document at the end of the Congress, which can then be communicated to various audiences, delivering our messages regarding a healthy, green and sustainable future. Thanks God we have excellent support in trying to achieve our objectives, and for the morning we will be presenting the summary of the main sessions with action items that were derived through or from those discussions. We have excellent speakers here in the room who will be presenting the different sessions to you for consideration and a little bit of discussion, which will be moderated by Mr. Henry Bonsu, who I don't think have to be introduced anymore to us. And the summary of all these discussions will then be included as an essence into the outcome document that will be presented to you in the afternoon. These action points in draft form will then be posted on the FAO website, and once they go through proper editing, they will be republished in their final forms as part of the proceedings of the World Forestry Congress. So it is a real challenge that is lying ahead of us, but I'm sure that we will be able to address this, and I'm sure that we will be having an interesting discussion here and real contribution to the future of the forest sector will be made through these considerations here. So without further ado, I would like to ask Henry to come to the podium and take over the floor and the microphone. Thank you very much.
I think you can do better than that. That was a lovely introduction. Come on, show some love for Peter Koska, please, come on. This guy and his team, they've been working tirelessly, indefatigably throughout the week and in fact before to get this together. It's been a hugely ambitious session. It's been wonderfully hosted by the Republic of Korea, and now we've got to try and do it justice here today with energy, with passion, with love, with connection. We love the forests, we love the trees. They do so much for us. So let's try and channel all of that in this next session, okay? It's a huge hall, but I want you to fill it with your human connection and your energy. Are you promising me you will do that? What kind of human beings do we have here this morning? I want your hearts to beat. I want your voices to resound through this room and show that you have taken something really significant from this Congress, which happens only once every 6 years. So good morning to you. Let me say, Annyeong haseyo. Clearly my pronunciation is terrible. And let me try again, Annyeong haseyo. Yes! Deputy Minister, thank you very much. At least you feel me, at least you do. Okay, I've had a great week. It's my first Congress. I've heard some amazing contributions, and some have really struck me, and I'll take them back with me to London when I'm on radio and television, talking on BBC and other broadcasters, and try and express briefly what I've heard this week. One of my favorite encounters was a virtual one, a young woman called Betty Osebonsu. You may have been in that session, an activist from Ghana, and she was there on the big screen, and a young woman, I think she was a student from here, Korea, asked her in the Q&A, how do you get noticed? How do you persuade people to take notice of what you're doing. And Betty said, look, if initially they ignore you, get yourself together, get organized, get a budget, get a plan, go to your local authority, say, I don't like what's happening with the trees or with the environment, and present an alternative. Get good on social media, be noisy, make good trouble, and then they will take account of what you're doing. She said, thank you very much. And that was a brilliant encounter. And it sums up a lot of what we've seen this week, especially from the youth. I've not been to a major UN event where I've seen so many young people contributing meaningfully, not just marginally, but sometimes right here from the center. That's wonderful. So let's channel all of that into this session. It's structured into 4 active and dynamic blocks where we will hear from each session what was most striking and what are the action points looking forward. We're talking about action, aren't we? So to cover the opening session of the Congress, I would like to invite now to the stage, and I want you to show them some love as they come up here, as if you're in the unveiling of a new Apple product with Steve Jobs now past, or Tim Cook, if you can feel Tim Cook, or even Zuckerberg. It's up to you. Okay, so show some love for Ms. Maria Helena Semedo, Deputy Director General of FAO and Chairperson of the Collaborative Partnership on Forests. Serena Fortuna, Senior Forestry Officer, Red Plus Team Leader. Deputy Minister Tae Hoon Nam, who is a representative of the Korean Forest Service. I know Deputy Minister likes my Korean, so thank you very much. So I feel him already. Wonderful. So we're going to hear from our initial speakers what exactly happened and what they can tell us. So starting off with Ms. Semedo. What can you tell us about the opening ceremony of the Congress and the high-level dialogue which followed? Because some of us were not there, but we need you, please, to channel the energy and the content in bite-sized form.
Thank you, Henri. This is a mission impossible.
Oh, for you, madam, all is possible.
Good morning, dear participants, Vice Minister, colleagues here. I will try to do my best to bring this energy, the passion, as you said, and it's a great honor for me to summarize the key message and action points on the high-level dialogue of the Congress. One of the most important messages coming from the high-level dialogue, and I must say throughout the Congress, was the sense of urgency. This has resonated loud and clear, and taking into consideration the pressing global challenge we face, we don't have time to lose. We must act now to address the climate crisis, the biodiversity loss, the COVID-19 pandemic, the food insecurity, and the continuing deforestation and forest degradation. And I think the message also coming here is we can. We can do it. We have launched the COFO 2022, and COFO has 3 main messages. There are 3 mutually reinforcing pathways to lead us to a greener, healthier, and more resilient future with forests, with the title of this Congress. The first one is halting deforestation and maintaining forest ecosystem benefits. The second one is restoring and enhancing productive capacity and resilience of forests. And the third one is enhancing sustainable forest use and building green value chains, the economic contribution of forests. Another strong message is the need for investment. We need to invest in protection, in sustainable management, restoration of our natural capital, our forests. We need to scale investment in forests coming from public and private sector, but they need to increase significantly. We need to move at scale in order to be transformative. For that, we need to catalyze larger financial flows through integrated planning, policy, technical, technological, and institutional innovation, and by strengthening domestic financial institutions. The need to bring technology, the need to have good public policies is also resonates very clear here. Another point is the role of the private sector. The private sector can pave the way through innovation and green investments. Third, or another coming, is the need to strengthen partnership, cooperation, and the use of scientific and traditional knowledge. It resonates very clear from the indigenous people, the knowledge they have and how to use those knowledge and to share the best practices and experience. Sharing best practices, we have an example of the Republic of Korea, which has shown that large-scale forest landscape restoration is possible when we have political will and resources made available. Again, the need for political will and the consequent resources. The need, when we talk about best practices, as I said, we have the indigenous people and the forest communities. They have been managing their forests sustainably for hundreds of years. They have the knowledge. Let's learn their rich tradition. The need to have the voice of the indigenous people, as you also refer, Henri, the voice of the youth. They need to be listened. They need to be having a meaningful contribution. They are the decision makers of the future. We need to move towards beyond a sectoral approach. We need to work across sector. We need to have a systemic approach, and we need to integrate forestry in the development strategies. We must reach out beyond forests to work together with the sectors driving deforestation and degradation to achieve more effective dialogue across sectors and have a positive influence and mutually beneficial decision and actions. Forests should be fully integrated in all development plans, in all the strategies where we need to use the natural resources. Without forests, any development strategy won't be sustainable. This is, Henri, the powerful messages coming from the opening session. I can assure you that FAO will take those messages forward. The next rendezvous we have the UNCCD COP15 in Abidjan. I will be there. Several ministers here will be there. I think will be the voice of the outcomes of this Congress. Other colleagues going to UNFF in New York. I hope you also be taking those messages forward in all those gatherings we'll be joining and attending. And this is what I want to summarize.
Wonderful.
I hope it was in your expectations.
Oh,
already.
yes, more than enough, more than. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy DG. So a sense of urgency, a sense of, yes, we can. We're talking about the political will, but also the resources to follow, which leads us neatly on to a report and action points from the Ministerial Forum on Forest Finance, which was to be given by Tina Vahanen, the Deputy Director of the Forestry Division. But I'm delighted to say that Madame Serena Fortuna, who is the team leader of the Red Plus department, is with us. So,
You change the name today?
Serena, what about the takeaways from the Ministerial Forum on Finance? Now, Madame Semedo has set the bar high. You have to meet that height, that level.
Thank you very much, Harry.
On time and on budget.
My gosh, yes. Well, filling in the room and filling in the shoes here is pretty big, so I'm not sure.
You know you can do it. You know.
I have to do it, right, for the forest, as you mentioned. And
Do it for the
FAO.
trees.
So, yeah, for our trees. So, dear participants, distinguished colleagues, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a huge shoes to fill in, but I couldn't agree more with what Mr. Meadow mentioned. I mean, I think we all bring away from here really a big sense of energy, and thanks Harry for that as well, a big sense of hope, but also a big sense of need of funds. And indeed, it's been mentioned at the Ministerial Forum, but also throughout all the different sessions, we really hearing the echo of those words, of the huge funding gap that there is still, unfortunately, existing between really what is needed in terms of accomplishing all the huge commitments that we have at global level, that we have at country level, to really fulfill the commitments on forests, to preserve, to manage, to restore our forests, and also and really what is available to do so. There's a huge gap still there, unfortunately. As Mr. Meadow mentioned, there is a need to really to scale up both public and private funding. Those would have to scale up, both of them. There is also a huge need for innovation. The innovation, sustainable financing options, there exist. We heard both at the forum, also in different sessions, that there are progress, there are examples and options, but there is also a shortage of bankable projects. And of course, the progress are there, but we need really to increase the access of those countries and those projects that are willing to do so, that are ready to do so, the access to climate and environment-based funds. That's essential. The funds can be there, but the access needs to be also available. There should be an enabling environment to do so. I think countries and the world need to change. Changing how the public money is spent to support how our forests are really seen as public goods. They are not just something to be there and to be left alone, but they are our resources. As Harry said, we need and we live with a forest. There need to be adjustment of rules across the sectors and markets to really ensure that nature and forest is seriously taken into account, not just as a check in the box to be left there. Policies must change to really divert perversive incentives and to divert financial flows away from actions that harm forests, that harm natural environment, and the opposite way. They need to incentivize conservation, restoration, and sustainable use. So there is a big transformational change that is needed there, serious, deep, and systematic. There is a need also to advance on multiple fronts, from the broader use of financial instruments to really build robust portfolios of projects where the private sector can invest in. There will also need to develop appropriate and just financing vehicles. Maybe just a couple of words on a blended concessional finance. That's also something that has been indicated pretty often, and it is really seen as important to be achieved. Private sector is ready. They've been sending messages from the different sessions here at the fora as well. They're asking to step in. They want high integrity, both from an environmental point of view and social point of view, to be able to fill in and to support the public finance to fill in that gap. That's valid for all forests, for all forest and nature-based options. A special word on mangroves. Mangroves, through blue carbon, the blue carbon investment in mangroves has a special place. They have sincerely a potential and capacity to deliver on high quality carbon credits. Accessible carbon markets can also be used, for example, to gains on forest restoration projects. Those should be embedded in a wider mix of income, so to really achieve financial sustainability. Last point, and with this I would like to conclude, that really transitioning to higher value economies and jobs anchored in the sustainable use and conservation of forests will require a solid enabling environment. The government has a special role here to really attract investments in the right areas, as well as taking advantage also of emerging both result-based and carbon finance mechanism. Now, this should be done in a manner that is appropriate, taking into account social and environmental safeguards, boosting the development that is decoupled from deforestation. This should include, not marginalize, local communities, smallholders, women and youth. And I think that from this Congress we had a very, very strong call for that as well. So with that, I thank you very much. I hope to have been able to fulfill your expectations.
Yes, Serena Fortuna, yes. With a name like Fortuna, of course. Fortune.
Thanks.
Of course. Excellent. So we have a sense of urgency, political will, innovation, sustainable finance, but importantly, access. It's all very well having this opportunity, but if there's no access, it's meaningless. And what's great about the Republic of Korea is that they're walking the walk as well as talking the talk. And so now, let's hear from Deputy Minister Tae-Hun Nam. This is going to be a report and action points from the Ministerial Forum on Sustainable Wood. Your Excellency, Deputy Minister.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Henry Bonsu. The Ministerial Forum was held on the 3rd May during the 15th World Forestry Congress. The honorable ministers and representatives of Republic of Cameroon, Japan, Republic of Austria, Republic of Peru, Gabonese Republic, and Republic of Korea shared national policy experiences and commitments to use wood resources sustainably and underlined the need for cost-effective and equitable solutions for value-added and carbon-neutral products. Honorable Minister of the Republic of Congo and representative of the Republic of Kenya shared their experiences and expressed their support during the forum. The ministers have agreed that sustainable production and consumption of wood promotes forest conservation, enhances the value of forest, and mitigates climate change. Building and living with wood responds to an increased demand for renewable materials and provide impetus for green recovery. Sustainable wood offers solutions across multiple value chains, including construction, furniture, packaging, renewable energy, biomaterials, and others. Scaling up bioeconomies by using sustainable wood, replacing carbon-intensive materials, has high potentials to become a cost-effective and innovative contribution to achieve carbon neutrality and build more resilient economies. Sustainable wood-based solutions build synergies with broader aims for economic recovery, growth of rural areas, and the circular economy innovation. Ministers highlighted that sustainable wood-based solutions need to build on sustainable forest management and address risks of trade-offs with the multiple other roles of forest, such as carbon storage in forest, loss of biodiversity, and of other essential forest services. The Ministerial Forum on Sustainable Wood is to call for scaling up sustainable wood-based pathways as follows. To address the lack of awareness of their potential. To enhance global and regional policy dialogue on pathways and related synergies and trade-offs and ways to strengthen investment. To improve modality to promote technical exchange, sharing of exchange and learning in order to drive innovations from sustainable forest management and efficient wood value chains to sustainable wood use. To significantly increase the use of sustainable wood-based solution within nationally determined contribution by 2030. The ministers also commit to join forces together to promote enhanced policy and technical dialogue and exchange among producer and consumer countries and key stakeholders to develop the necessary momentum and actions at scale, and invite the FAO of the UN and members of the Collaborative Partnership of Forests to support these efforts. The ministers are convinced that mobilizing the full potential of sustainable wood will enable to build more carbon neutral and resilient economies and progress towards more sustainable societies. The ministerial call on sustainable wood is open for other countries and will be published on the WFC webpage to be available for interested countries and stakeholders. It concludes the summary of the Ministerial Forum. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Honourable Minister. Tae-Hun Nam, fantastic. I love that multiple value chains and sustainably, doing things sustainably. Now, before I ask you to resume your seats, and this is something that we're going to do after each block of submissions, have we missed anything? Have we left something out? I'm going to invite you, if you have something very brief to say, to go to one of the microphones that you can see in the channels, in the aisles, and we'll take one or two very brief points before we move on, because I want you to be engaged with this. I want this to be interactive. So raise your hand or hands if you have something to say at this point, something that is bursting but relevant. If not, forever hold your peace. Okay? You're holding your peace until the next round. Thank you very much to our speakers. Thank you very much, Madam Semido, Madam Fortuna, and Minister Tae-Hun Nam. Thank you very much indeed. So we're going to move from the high-level dialogue on the Ministerial Forum on Forest Finance and on sustainable wood to our second block, the plenaries. I would like to invite onto the stage Luke Nakaja, Lead UN Decade Science Task Force, Adriana Lucia Santa Mendez, Director of Forests, Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, Colombia, and Jane Maloney, Executive Director, South African Paper Manufacturers Association. Please take your seats and show them some recognition, some love, please. My God, after the week we've had, we feel bonded now for the next 6 years. I hope. Let's be sustainable here. Okay, so let's hear, first of all, from Luke Nagaja, Lead UN Decade Science Task Force. So, 8 more years to heal the planet. Please, your brief report and action points.
Well, thank you.
And make it lively and connect us with you.
Thank you, Henry. I'm not sure I can match your standard.
You know you can.
But I will thrive. Degraded ecosystem are our underperforming asset. They are just there awaiting our care and investment.
Microphone.
In order to thrive again. So we must make sure that we consider them as our underperforming asset, care for them and invest in them to make them thrive again. And in fact, that is the expected outcome of the decade. That at the end of the decade, all our degraded ecosystem will thrive again. So I do hope that you will take that away as a takeaway and make sure that you are an ambassador for the decade. Ecosystem restoration is not just about planting trees. It's more than that. It can eradicate poverty, it can improve livelihood, and it can increase the productivity and actually the functioning of the ecosystem themselves. And therefore, the potential to restore ecosystems should not be used as an excuse to degrade them. It's not about degrading and then restoring. It is much more cost-effective to avoid degradation. So conservation is the first step of what we are talking about. And effective ecosystem restoration must combine science, local knowledge, including traditional knowledge. And fortunately, there's a lot of knowledge available in the local communities, and we need to consider that and tap into it. And government should not just transfer responsibility to local communities and expect them to do the work. Government must show the way by providing for the enabling environment precisely for all stakeholders of the ecosystem to do their part of it, their share of it. And forest and landscape restoration is what we have now, the only solution to bring carbon removal at scale, at an achievable cost, and deliver co-benefit in the context of sustainable development. Unfortunately, the cost of carbon that you have, that is between $5 to $10, can't match the cost of restoration, that is between $60 to $80 per ton. So we need to fill that gap. And filling that gap will also help to bring on board the private sector and help to realize the decisive potential of forest restoration to contribute to climate action. And here we need transparency. We need, therefore, harmonized framework for reporting. And I would like to really commend the fact that we have something working. It has been presented here. We must improve it. We must make sure that we have it running at all levels to monitor. And we need a systemic change. The systemic change that we need has to work by ensuring that we not only deliver on the burden challenge, which target what was 350 million hectares to be restored by 2030, but even more so to deliver on the nowadays 1 billion hectares committed by countries under the Rio Convention processes. The last one, Peter, is my favorite, because it recalls that we may have, and we have, 8 more years to heal the planet, but we only have 3 years of effective climate action to have a chance to keep the planet below the 1.5 Celsius degree scenario under the Paris Agreement. So it is essential to stop the expansion of agricultural land on our natural forest at all levels by purposely restoring our degraded land and put them to use. It is therefore time for increased funding and effective action. We can no longer afford the luxury of procrastination.
Thank you very much, Luke. Thank you very much indeed. Come on, yes, indeed. And again, a sense of urgency, conservation and restoration. And I love the pictures. Look at the pictures there. I mean, we have to nurture the plants and the trees the way in which they nurtured our ancestors, because one of the reasons why human beings survived is our earlier ancestors took shelter in trees. That's what we did, going back many, many thousands of years, maybe even millions. Right, now on to Adriana Lucia Santa Mendez, Director of Forest, Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, Colombia. I think you're going to speak in Spanish, and you're going to tell us what came out of Plenary Session 2, Forests for a Healthy, Prosperous and Peaceful World. Over to you. I need to get my interpretation. Pause 1 second. Please, can...
En español.
I will be speaking in Spanish. Pleased to meet you. So personally, I wanted to start off on a lighter note. I hope everyone is ready. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Henry. And welcome to everyone who has joined us for this session. And I would like to once again thank the Korean government, the Korean Forestry Service, and the FAO for this excellent arrangement for the Congress. Thank you very much for a great Congress. I am sure that there was a great opportunity for all of us to listen to the current status of forestry around the world, as well as come up with solutions for forests across the globe, and to talk about the financing as well as the possible actions to contribute to climate change mitigation. Let me take this opportunity to share with you the report and action points for Plenary Session 2, Forest for a Healthier and Prosperous World. I would like to talk talk about 5 points. First, as we recover from COVID-19, well, COVID-19 has been an opportunity for us to realize the impact of forests, especially in the urban areas, on our health and well-being. The green areas of urban regions need to be included in city planning. Green areas provide a buffer for all sorts of pollutions, including noise pollution. Through COVID-19, we were able to remind ourselves of the importance of forests for the health of our citizens. To have green areas near our homes is now more important than ever before. And so this is a way to provide ecosystem services for all citizens around the world. And related to COVID-19, we also need to think about plants and animals. We realize the stress on plants and animals, and forests will play a large role in relieving the stress of plants and animals. And so as we recover from the pandemic, we need to continue our recognition of the importance of forests, and we need to also remind ourselves of the connection between the health of forests and the health of the people. And so we need to come up with a definition of a One Health concept. For the well-being of people, we need to remember that the health of forests is important. Additionally, through the second plenary session, we were able to think about what forests provides to us, especially from the perspective of natural disasters and social conflicts. We are reminded of how forests can be used as a preventive tool. And so, forests can be the tool of our livelihood as well as an instrument in establishing peace after conflicts. And we could see this from the example of Colombia. After signing a peace treaty within Colombia, forest communities and the areas that will be used for urbanization have been contracted through negotiations. We also realize that communication, peace, and recovery can be strengthened through the role of forests. We have learned this from the Colombian example, and so that is why we need to utilize forests as instruments of peace. Furthermore, we also need to take into consideration the indigenous groups and local communities that live in the forest. And so we need to protect the forest for these communities. We also need to invite the participation of the youth to create a healthier environment for all. I am still young. I am still 34. And so I believe that including the youth is important, and in order to strengthen our leadership for the future, we need to work together and we need to have a long-term perspective of forest, and we need to contribute to these visions. In the mid to long term, we need to make sure that we contribute to sustainable utilization of forests, and we also need to contribute to the challenge of achieving the SDGs. In order to live up to these challenges, we need to make sure that each country across the globe plays its role including the perspectives of citizens, in particular the youth.
Because we've got so many speakers and nobody has been on time yet. Nobody, not even our high-level speakers. Nobody has been on budget. Nobody's been on time. So,
I'm going
you've
to
got
finish.
10 seconds.
All right. Y finalmente,
One.
los pueblos indígenas.
Well, this is the last point. The indigenous groups and the local communities. We need to make sure that as they live in the forest and as they maintain very close relations with the forest, we need to become aware of their traditions and knowledge in restoring forests.
Thank you very much, Adriana. Yes, you're still young. Director of Forest, Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, Colombia, at the age of 34. I'm very impressed. Right, let's move on. Yes, indeed, we should clap for that. That's brilliant. Okay. Let's move on to report and action points for Plenary Session 3, wood, the most ancient raw material, taking us, that's right, to the future. And I'm delighted to say we have Jane Maloney, Executive Director, South African Paper Manufacturers Association. Can she bring us home in this section on time and on budget?
Thank you. Rapid urbanization means we need to reduce greenhouse gases. We need to rethink cities. Cities of the future should be more integrated with nature. We should focus on locally produced wood, on locally produced renewable materials. We need to adapt design to these materials to create more eco-friendly buildings. We need policies. We need building regulations that allow and promote sustainable buildings with a low carbon footprint. Construction with this wood and other renewable materials, we provide excellent opportunities for forest countries to use the wood that they produce for developing sustainable, eco-friendly housing, especially in cities. Many developing countries have huge challenges, and they are going to need support and investment to establish the processing industries that can produce the modern timber products that are required for this construction. Anything that is made from fossil fuels or petroleum today can be made from a tree tomorrow, and can be made from a tree today too. Research, science and development and innovations, we need it. It'll help us to transition to a lower carbon economy and to a circular bioeconomy. We need new wood-based materials, products and manufacturing methods and services. And we need to improve resource efficiency and recyclability of already available bio-based products to truly move to that sustainable bioeconomy. I'm getting nervous, Henry. I'm trying hard.
I'm watching you closely, Jane, watching you closely.
Scale up the use of wood. You have to scale up the supply. We have to do this through restoration, reforestation, afforestation of degraded lands, as well as the expansion is in a good word, of agroforestry. When you come into a new area, especially developing, and you see that patchwork quilt of smallholder farmers, forest communities, picture the small, medium enterprises, they all produce significant amounts of timber, but we need to strengthen their capacity to participate in sustainable wood value chains. This must include certification to achieve a greater economic resilience at the local level. Now, public perception, they can think wood harvesting is often associated with deforestation. No, this needs to change, and we are part of that change. The global awareness of wood as a nature-based solution was raised at COP26. We can build on this. Wood is good. The public perception must change. Greater consumption of sustainably produced wood and harvested wood products means more carbon stored. It means more forest conserved, and it means greater resilience. Wood is truly good. This is the future.
Jane, thank you very much indeed. And yes, indeed, you did come in on time and on budget. Wood is good. That's fantastic and locally produced. And yeah, you've echoed some of the thoughts of our previous speakers, but you've taken us on as well. I mean, this notion that everything that is produced by fossil fuels can also be produced by wood. Most people, ordinary, regular people, would have no idea that that's the case whatsoever. Now, we've got about a minute. If you want to say something, you want to say something in response to what you've heard, you've been inspired, maybe you've been to one or two of the sessions before, one of the plenaries, and you think, actually, I think we've missed something, then please do let us know. You can come to one of the microphones. Do we have somebody there? I can't quite tell. Yes, please. Tell us who you are and be really, really lean and mean in your comments. Not mean, but nice, but lean. Yes, go on.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning. I don't want to hold my peace anymore, so let me speak. All right. Please, from what we have been speaking from day one till now, we have a lot of challenges when we are talking about developing countries with respect to value chain, import and export of food. To what extent are we supporting legality, timber legalities and forest certification? We've had a lot of our products being exported to the Asian world, to European and all these countries. To what extent are you supporting developing countries so that we will actually implement timber legality, certification, and all these standards in order to curb illegal forest product export? Thank you.
Fola, thank you very much. Fola Babalola, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to leave that as a rhetorical question because it's not a Q&A, but it will be captured and hopefully make its way into some document because everything that is said here is going to be captured. So thank you very much. Do we have one more little thought on to supplement that? If not, I'm going to release Block 2. Block 2, you are duly released.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Luke, Adriana, and Jane, thank you very much indeed. Wonderful. All right, we're now going to pass on to Block 3. Let me invite onto the stage to generous applause, maybe even some love, Estelle Fach, Central African Forest Initiative Secretariat, Juan Carlos Hintiach, Technical Advisor, Climate Change and Biodiversity, COICA and AGCT, Garo Batmanian, Global Lead for Forests, Landscapes and Biodiversity, World Bank, Fabiola Marta Munoz Dodero, Coordinator of the Coalition for Sustainable Production, Peru, Jennifer Hayes, Director of Science Application, USA Forest Service, Rocky Mountain Research Station. She's got fans, she has fans here. And Natalie Fowre, Senior Program Officer, RECOFT, RECOFTC. That sounds like an Aretha Franklin, RESPECT. But it's not quite that, but yes. All right. So we're going to need you guys to be rapid because there's a lot of speakers. And if you need any assistance to land, as we say in Accra, believe me, I'll bring you home safely. So we're going to start off with Estelle. So, turning the tide. These are sub-themes now. Beautiful picture there. Reversing, what a lovely picture. Reversing deforestation and forest degradation. Estelle, how are we doing this?
Okay, 3 minutes with passion on turning the tide.
2 minutes 50.
So 2022 is the crucial year for accelerating delivery on commitments on forest and collectively, all together, reducing deforestation and forest degradation. So there are coalitions, there are strengthened national and international commitments, including the Glasgow Leaders Declaration on Forest and Land Use, the Paris Agreement, and these are all opportunities to turn the tide on deforestation and at the same time combating the planetary emergency of climate change, of biodiversity loss, of inequality, of global health. So it is high time to pass from an era of negotiation and commitments to a decade of ambitious action and finance at scale. So first, the basis is halting deforestation requires robust and comprehensive information on the dynamics that condition and drive the use of forest and land. And yesterday we heard about new tools developed in the Central African region for the Central African forest and others. Deforestation dynamics data can have strong impact on policymaking, but we should not underestimate the institutional dimension of opening access to data. Also, stakeholder rights and capacity to generate, access, and use data, including socioeconomic data, explaining the underlying drivers, should keep progressing. Second is agri-food system transformation is a game changer to turn the tide on deforestation, and we heard about the Ghana example. Achieving this transformation requires coherence across environmental and economic policies and greater stakeholder cooperation. Now, there's a number of countries, companies, and institutions that are defining and implementing voluntary and regulatory approaches to ensure that agricultural value chains do not affect deforestation. So demand side and supply side measures linked to agricultural production, trade, and consumption can accelerate systemic change. The third thing is that partnership and trust are really, really important factors of success. So efforts to reverse deforestation and forest degradation, including when they're driven by new markets, must benefit and engage smallholders, indigenous people, and local communities with clear and full recognition of their rights. Also, effective forest sector verification and certification system, whether they're voluntary or mandatory, can play an important role in achieving sustainable forest management and reducing forest degradation and deforestation. Genuine engagement of the private sector and civil society is essential, again, for developing inclusive and robust verification and certification system. Some examples that were extensively discussed are systems developed through the voluntary partnership agreements between the countries and the European Union, and the very famous voluntary schemes such as the FSC. And the contribution of this system should be better reflected in national climate mitigation plans and financing. Carbon finance has significant potential to increase financing for reducing deforestation and forest degradation, with the demand for offsets surging rapidly and stimulated by the approval of Article 6 at COP26. 2 more points.
You have another page?
No, just 2 more points. They're important. Okay. Thanks to RED processes over more than 10 years, many countries have developed strategies and action plans. They strengthened technical and institutional capacities and boosted stakeholder engagement and participation, including indigenous people, local communities, and women. And a number of these countries have demonstrated results on the ground already. Results-based finance, such as carbon markets and RED, could serve as boosters and complement financing opportunities for such action. And my final point, again...
You said that before, Estelle.
No,
you have to land.
It is. That the pledges must be turned into real financial flows.
Right? Okay. That is what we will remember. Okay? That's what we're going to remember. So in all your presentations, yes, both for this panel, remember, less is more. We want to take something away. So be really, really clear and leave us something we can hold on to, something really tangible. So you mentioned, Estelle, the rights of indigenous people with the knowledge, and one person who certainly has struck me with the clarity of his voice and his passion, especially when it comes to this issue, is Juan Carlos Gintiac, who is technical advisor on climate change and biodiversity at COICA. And so, Juan Carlos, you're going to speak to nature-based solutions for climate change, adaptation and mitigation, and biodiversity conservation. Your time starts now.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Henry. I am going to report on sub-theme 2, which was about nature-based solutions. It is my honor and pleasure to do so. And in the sessions for sub-theme 2, we discussed how we can promote nature-based solutions together with local communities and indigenous peoples. I'd like to invite you all to this endeavor. We need to utilize science and modern technology, but at the same time, we need to utilize the traditional knowledge and wisdom of our ancestors. We need to strengthen links between the modern technology and science and traditional knowledge. And we were able to build a consensus on this. And in employing nature-based solutions, we need to make sure that local residents and indigenous peoples will be involved. And we also discussed ways to raise various financial resources to support them. There are many agreements, including the Paris Agreement and other global commitments and pledges. But it is crucial to establish specific action plans and strategies. And I believe that there are many valuable opportunities out there to do so. I would like to emphasize that there should be transparency in mobilizing and using financial resources. And we also need to have more transparent and effective monitoring on forest degradation and deforestation. And at the same time, we need to ensure that no one is left behind. Women and youth and vulnerable social groups, they all need to be included. They all need to be involved so that everyone can benefit from nature-based solutions. In our modern society, we have a huge body of knowledge and information, but to be able to do so, we need to provide more access to such knowledge and information, and also we need to build trust. Another point that I want to mention is that all nature-based solutions need to be eco-friendly and sustainable. You are all champions and leaders, and Indians and indigenous people like myself, we are champions as well. We need to stay connected. We need to be connected not only practically but also spiritually. We need to remember why we are all gathered here in this place. And finally, I'd like to mention that trees are not just simple financial resources, but I hope that you will visit us in our local villages, the indigenous villages, and I hope that you will come and meet with us and be in the forests together with us so you can feel what it's like to coexist in nature and how you can communicate with one another culturally in the forests. And I hope that we will be able to respond to our ecological challenges and we can work together to preserve biodiversity. We are working hard to do so as indigenous peoples, and I hope that you will all be with us together. Thank you.
Juan Carlos, as ever, you speak with passion, fire, spirituality, but also the real detail. I like this idea of the high-tech of now and the traditional knowledge, but there has to be mutual respect. And I accept your invitation to come and visit you in the depths of the forest. But I grew up in the UK my whole life, so I have no natural protection, so you'll have to give me some blessing, okay? Thank you, Juan Carlos. We now move to Garo Batmanian, who is a global lead for forests, landscapes and diversity at the World Bank. And this is speaking to sub-theme 3. There it is, it's going to be coming up in a moment. The green pathway to growth and sustainability. There we are, lovely. Okay, Garo Batmanian, your time starts now.
Thank you, Henry, and I hope you can later tell us what you have for breakfast because I like your energy. I would need that right now. For
a traditional Korean breakfast, whatever that was.
The overall theme of this conference is also one of the conclusions of our sub-theme, that the forests have a role to play in achieving all sustainable development goals, but this cannot happen on itself. That's the main message. We have to work together, a cross-collaboration, promoting landscape approach, new technologies, quantifying. Just saying we contribute to the other sustainable development goals without actually working on it and trying to reach out is not working, and we can do this better. Of course, as raised by one of the participants in the plenary, we need to start with good governance and protect local rights. For the local people, tenure rights, resource rights, these are preconditions. We cannot have sustainable investment without a level playing field, because of course you're competing with illegal activities, with exploitation of people. That is not possible. So you need to have investment in good governance. That includes the laws related to regulations and policies aligned with international labor standards and others, so that we have proper rules for safety, for youth working, women working, good, decent jobs. Now, coming to jobs, we can do much more on jobs, on formal employment in the forest sector, including for women and young people, and we can do that by finding sustainable solutions for improving the sector performance and conditions, social dialogue, understanding what the conditions are for these groups. The other one we can do is that the private sector should promote and establish teaching work opportunities, including green jobs in both traditional and emerging forest-related activities. You can do that. You can open that opportunities for them. And finally, on the job side, we can and we should strengthen capacities at all levels to develop quality skills and safe workplaces. We have to provide the training for the people to enter the market. Now, another finding is the bioeconomy represents a huge opportunity for the forest sector and an exciting new opportunity for wood-based products. Many companies, as we heard this week, are rethinking their approach to innovation and collaboration to embrace this opportunity, new woods, new uses for wood, for bamboo, for other fibers. So it is important to support sustainable development, but we need the adequate financial mechanism for innovation and production. We need to develop R&D, but we have to have financing that can be patient enough to support this kind of activities. Now, this is at the larger scale. At the smaller scale, small and medium-sized forest-based enterprises face many challenges when it comes to accessing finance. We heard a lot of this the entire week. It's an issue of scale, the banks don't like it, you have I'm not going to go over all the problems here. The lessons learned are that innovative approaches exist, they are working, we can do bankable projects for small holders, but they often require mobilizing technical assistance and what we call patient capital, somebody that doesn't want to start receiving the profit within 6 or 8 months after a loan, and give us some time for the project to mature and generate profits. Of course, we also have to work on assessing the market and developing those products so that people can understand comes from the community. You can market them differently, you can promote them differently, so that the people here can do that. Finally, before you say something, so here I go with the finally.
You mentioned patient capital and patient financing. I'm running out of patience with you, Garros.
Yeah.
You have to
finally,
finish. I'm joking.
Blended finance has the great, what we call it blended finance, which is mixture of different sources, including grants, has a great potential to provide more funding for sustainable forests and landscape management from both sources, public and private. It includes pooling resources that come from multiple agencies and that deliver cross-sectorial benefits. We can invest in tools like green bond, crowdfunding, innovation hubs, equity, or the collaboration with insurance companies, because working on forests, on SDGs, protecting the forest decreases the risk of the investment. And this is something that companies can measure, and therefore they can capitalize on.
Very good.
With that, I just want to say at the end that we also have to look at one topic that was going to come along here, is that we have to look at the entire supply chain. We can't, for all the products, we cannot only think about what we're doing in our company, but where we are buying from, who is producing, who they are hiring, what kind of forest they are working. We need to integrate the supply chain.
And Garo, I'm going to have to bring down the gavel now, because you are
way
over.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Wonderful. But you're right. I mean, good governance, local rights, because you simply cannot compete with the illegal activity. That's important to re-emphasize that, and patient financing and patient capital. Now on to sub-theme 4, forests and human health and well-being. What a lovely picture. What a beautiful picture. Where's that taken, I wonder? Is that Sudan or? I'm not sure, but it's a beautiful picture. So, forests and human health and well-being, revisiting the connections. This is what we should do. On to Fabiola Mata Munoz Dodero, coordinator of the Coalition for Sustainable Production, Peru. Over to you.
Muchas gracias.
Yes, okay.
¿Funciona o no?
Yes, it's on. Yes.
¿Ahora sí? Ok. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, Henry. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me. As we all know, we need to think about green pathways to sustainable development. And in order to achieve sustainable development, we need to stay healthy. So these are all very true to each one of us. The absolute truth is there, but we need to think about practical measures to implement this. We may not fully understand the whole potentials and the benefits provided by forests. Forests are not only important for our economic activities, but also for our spiritual and mental health. In Korea, I was able to see that there are so many green areas in Seoul and in Korea, but that's not the case in many other countries. We need to think about expanding green areas in our urban environment. Also, we need to continue our discussions on all kinds of benefits provided by the forests, not only economic benefits, but other types of benefits as well. Because if there's no forests, we cannot respond to climate change at all. It really means that we should move beyond our attention to the forests for economic benefits, but also other benefits. But in many cases, decisions have been made only based on the economic value of forests. In that sense, we need to change our mindset. We need to transform our perspective. We should not just think about forests in connection with our economy, but rather in connection with our health. Also, in order to maintain our health, we can utilize forest-based therapies and well-being programs. In Peru, we have various programs, and we say that you need to hug the trees. You need to hug a tree around you in order to heal, because this is a way for us to be connected back to our Mother Earth. But when you think about the national accounting or government budget, or in public policies or their decision making, such aspect is not considered at all. But when you think about individual cases where forests benefit us in terms of health, these can be clearly understood in our experiences. We need to build an agreement and consensus that forests should not only offer us economic benefits, but also benefits for our health and well-being. Therefore, forests need to be mainstreamed in national health care policies. They need to be taken into account when governments establish their healthcare policies and public health policies. Furthermore, we need to be reminded once again of the medical knowledge and medicinal herbs and plants that our ancestors have been utilizing to heal their diseases. And also we discussed in sub-theme 4 sessions how we can promote well-being and health utilizing forests. Forests are effective in reducing noise levels in the cities. And also, forests and green areas in cities help improve air quality, thereby improving health and well-being of citizens in cities. In addition, historically, there have been these indigenous communities that have been in these forests, but we have not been successful in working with them. And we also need to think about the needs of small holders and small owners. And these people lack access to financial resources. In Peru, there are many small farmers, but if they want to get a loan from a bank, the interest rate will be 80% per year. This is practically impossible for them to get a loan and repay that. How can they maintain their small business if access to such loans is very limited? But we can think about the value that they create when they sell medicinal herbs and other healthy options for people around us. Then we need to think about the kinds of value that they provide us. As was mentioned by a speaker from Colombia, forests are valuable in building and maintaining peace. And we need to also build peace with trees and nature. Also, as was mentioned by another person, we need to include women and youth, and as well as senior citizens, because these elderly, they have traditional knowledge that we need to benefit from. I am 50 years old, but I consider myself a youth. Yes, you are. That's right. So I look young, I stay young, and I think we have the right to stay young because it's not just about physical age.
I am your senior, and as your senior brother from West Africa, I have to tell you, please, you have to land.
Yes, it's the last.
Okay.
Y finalmente, la pandemia.
Okay, this last one is about the COVID-19 pandemic. We realized how vulnerable we are as humanity, but forests help us stay healthy and enjoy our lives to the fullest. So to do so, we need to work together. And in terms of decision-making for all forests, we need to include all stakeholders in our decision-making process. And we need to think about all these benefits. Thank you.
What I love about Fabiola, we're only just meeting now, is you know when you catch the eye of the speaker and when they're going over their time, and they look at you and nod, and you assume they mean, yes, I'm finishing now. They look at you, nod, smile, and then continue. I know your tricks, Fabiola. I've seen your tricks before. Let's see if Jennifer Hayes will try the same thing. Now, Jennifer is Director of Science Application at the USA Forest Service Rocky Mountain Research Station. She's going to talk about sub-theme 5, Managing and Communicating Forest Information, Data and Knowledge. I was in this session yesterday, actually. Really interesting. Jennifer, over to you.
Great, and I'm going to set my watch here to make sure I don't go over.
Well, so long as you don't set your watch to 10 minutes or 5 minutes, to set it to 3. Go for it.
Thank you for having us, and this is quite a big theme. There were many, many sessions here, so I will do my best. I think that in our session yesterday, if anybody was there, you heard this quote, but it sums it up really nicely. As Sir David Attenborough said so well, that tackling the climate challenge is now a communication challenge. And sub-theme 5 was all about this. It was about all of the data, the information, and the knowledge about forests that need to be managed and communicated in order to affect climate action, to halt deforestation, and to restore forest ecosystems. And one key theme that came out of this was around transparency and access to data. It's really, really important for building trust that people continue to have free access to this data. And this data is the basis for many of the global agreements. And the interesting thing that I found in these sessions was that the data is coming from all kinds of places. It's the traditional knowledge, but it's also super high tech. And there is the need to continue with the free provision of remote sensing data, which is incredibly expensive to collect, because these global data sets are really public goods. And it's also essential that we have field-based measurements and that they continue and that they are validation for this remotely sensed data. And importantly, that we enforce or pick up our efforts towards more data collection for socioeconomic information and information on restoration monitoring. And so when we combine this data that I've talked about with the incredible computing infrastructure that's out there, we can reach a really broad audience and offer new insights into all kinds of global challenges, but especially into deforestation and its drivers. And this is really, really, really important work. As we heard, how are we going to ensure legality and certification if we don't have good access to the data? And I think a lot of progress has been made towards this restoration monitoring that I mentioned. There was the launch of the framework for the ecosystem restoration monitoring system here. And the capacity of countries and stakeholders, however, needs to be strengthened. This is, again, pointing to the need for transparent monitoring and reporting of progress towards all of the agreed commitments. I think one of the places that this could really plug in as well is around land use planning, policies, and decisions. We have to continue to make this information available. And really importantly, we need a new narrative for forests. We need increased capacity building for our forest communicators. Each and every one of us is a forest communicator. We're all here, we're all doing it. We need to do more of it, and we need to build capacity in the next generation so that they can also do it. We need to help the world, everyone in the world, strengthen their understanding and awareness of the benefits that sustainably managed forests offer. And this goes beyond just policymakers and decision makers. It really needs to be part of all of the broad global dialogues happening now. As we've heard, it ties to the challenges of COVID-19. We've heard how this information communicating about forests could really influence all of those things. And also importantly, this sub-theme included information on forest education, which is critically important. We've heard a lot of our speakers today talk about the youth. And we need to be doing this at all levels, from early childhood to university curriculum. We need to really focus on the urbanized populations out there. We're kind of talking to ourselves in here, so we have to really go to the cities where people are, where youth are, and talk to them about the importance of forests and trees and sustainably produced wood. And really importantly, this helps us attract the next generation of conservationists and foresters, because we have huge challenges in front of us. And if we are not bringing up the next generation, we will not succeed. So this sector is evolving incredibly quickly. And with that,
Jennifer, you
I will
are
pass.
over, but
I will pass.
It was elegant. So thank you very much. So yes, Jennifer Hayes, we need a new narrative. I like the idea of reaching beyond the room, obviously. Maybe we can call it Forests Without Boundaries, which leads us neatly on into this sub-theme 6, Forests Without Boundaries, Enhancing Management and Cooperation, Reaching Out Beyond. And Nathalie Faure is a Senior Program Officer at the Center for People and Forests. And Nathalie is going to speak to that particular sub-theme. Over to you.
Thank you, Henry. So I have the pleasure to present the results of Forests Without Boundaries. So you might wonder, what does it mean, Forests Without Boundaries, and how do we achieve that? During our sessions, we discussed that forests are obviously part of the solution of the big challenges that we have today. But to maximize the benefits of forests to planets and the people, they must be considered as an integral part of a mosaic of what forests bring, so land cover, land use, agri-food systems. However, we have to overcome certain challenges, administrative boundaries and silos, but also the lack of multi-sectoral institutional mechanisms have to be overcome. So what is needed to enable forests play their full potential and their full roles? An integrated landscape management is needed, a framework to address water, biodiversity, agriculture, and energy. It's essential to have that integrated framework take into account the interests and concerns of forest-dependent people, in particular indigenous people and local communities, but also us urban populations and other stakeholders. Another highlight of the session was the key role that forestry plays in green jobs. Forestry has to be sustainable, with sustainable growth, income, revenue, and investments. We have to change the way we think as a society beyond economic interest. and economic aspects. That was another key highlight of that session. We have to consider the full range of contributions that forests make to ecosystem services and agri-food systems, beyond wood, carbon, and water. The social and cultural values that forests bring are equally important. I remember one of the panelists during the session say, "Tree is not a project, tree is life." The active participation of all stakeholders is key, is an essential element of ensuring sustainable forest management and the management of other land resources. How to ensure that? We have to bring together coordination, collaboration mechanisms, and partnerships among different stakeholders and among different sectors, and also create an enabling environment to make it happen. Civil society organizations are one of the key actors to recognize in that bringing together those actors. They play a crucial role as brokers of trust. They bring together governments, private sector, and indigenous people and local communities to create a better understanding and a better environment of mutual respect. Indigenous peoples are not stakeholders, but right holders. That was another key message from our sessions. And finally, I'll end with a very important message which came out of our session, but I think of the Congress as well. Intergenerational cooperation is also key to attain our common goals. The participation of young people, the decision makers of the future, is essential. Thank you.
Natalie, well done. That was formidable. You landed on time, on budget, no excess spending. It was fantastic. And I love some of those phrases, beyond wood, carbon and water, tree is life. Now, you've heard from Block 3, our speakers. Do we have somebody who thinks we may have missed something out? Is there something that you heard? Ah, yes, gentleman over there. Can you go to a microphone? I think there might be, yes. Okay, please tell us in brief.
I'm Dr. Fazul Bari from FAO, Pakistan. My comment is related to the reversing deforestation and forest degradation. And one of the important, we are running a project under GIF support. The main point we need, because in those areas there is a poverty issue. And to address the poverty issue, there is a need for organic certification of their products and inclusion of payment for ecosystem services. That is the big two aspect which will bring sustainability and financial mechanism to sustain. Thank you.
Faisal, thank you very much. A certification has been mentioned a couple of times. Do we have another supplementary, somebody else who feels they have to add something? If not, I'm going to release my prisoners from Block 3. You are released. Thank you very much indeed for your comments and contributions. Wonderful stuff. And I'm thinking of what Fabiola said earlier. Wouldn't it be wonderful if your doctor, instead of prescribing you some expensive drugs for several months, would prescribe you a week in the forests as a nature-based solution for your mental health? Wouldn't that be wonderful? We will know we're succeeding when that happens. Okay, let's move on to Block 4A. 4A, special events. And I would like to invite to the stage Robert Nassi, Director General of CIFOR. He's got some fans. Yes, Robert Nassi, Vice Chair of the Collaborative Partnership on Forests, superstar with his super shirt. Yun Sik Park, Secretary General of the World Forestry Congress. Superstar with lots of fans, Peter Gondo, Interregional Advisor on Sustainable Forest Management, UNFF. Do we have any fans for Peter? Raise the roof for Peter, come on. Peter Gondo is in the house. Peter Gondo is in the building. Wow. Look how he came, look how he mounts the stage. Posiso Sola. Now, she was a star in the session I went to. Center for International Forestry Research and World Agroforestry, CIFOR. Posiso. Posiso is no nonsense. Back to basics. And Anali Bustos, Monte Alegre Natural Reserve, University of Buenos Aires. Anali has fans. This is good to see. Okay, so you got so many cheers. You got so much love. which means you now have to deliver, each of you, something powerful, pithy, and concise that we will retain. I hand the baton over to Robert Nasi, and he's going to talk about the report and action points from the CPF dialogue with major groups on climate change, conflicts, and food insecurity. Robert.
Thanks. I've been given a very carefully crafted text, but you don't need me for reading it, so I'm going to give you my unapologetic take on it.
Robert, speak from the heart and the
yes,
soul.
And first, I mean, I was just reading this morning that a big oil company, a big oil major, is just making $9.1 billion in profit on the first quarter. At the same time, we're subsidizing the fossil fuel industry at the rate of $11 million a minute. Is it acceptable? No, because we are not investing in our green infrastructure, forest. So, first point, action point, we should invest in our forest, trees, and the people that are the steward of these forests and trees. And for that, we should think where to take the money upon. But this is a very important thing to do. Another big player is the food and agriculture system. It is also responsible of 90% of the deforestation. So we need to rethink our food and agriculture system because we are also subsidizing these at the rate of $540 billion a year, 90% of these subsidies being harmful to the environment of people. So we need to rethink our food and agroforestry system so that it becomes conducive to green development and forest future. Which brings us to the whole issue of indigenous people and local community that own 40% of the forest land, but unfortunately do not have the means to exert their rights and to manage their forests that have been sustained for millennia. So there will be no reduction in deforestation, there will be no reduction in degradation, there will be no progress unless these people have their rights recognized and they are sitting on the table. Because if they are not sitting on the table, they will end up on the menu.
Yeah. Oof.
And next point, we are going to this issue. Of course, I mean, you have conflicting needs, you have conflicting things about resource. So there is a lot of conflict about forest and land use. And these conflicts are all mainly linked to in-power balances and governance issues. So these need to be solved because if we are not going to solve this, I mean, we are not going to make a lot of progress. But think of what? Forests for peace. Forests can be used as a common vehicle to bring peace in transboundary activity and to make the life and society better. And then I wouldn't want my grandchildren to tell me, you knew there was a problem, you didn't do anything because of short-vested interest. So I think we really need to involve youth more than we are doing, and we give them more than lip services. They should have a prominent role in meetings like that, but also in action and in consultation. They should be part of the decision-making system in terms of what to do with forests. And finally, silos are very good to store grain. They are not very good to solve our global crisis. So we need to work together. We need to bring collective action to our issue. And for that, a group like the Collaborative Partnership on Forest that brings 15 of the large organizations that are a significant program on forest have a big role to play, but also a big responsibility to assume. So colleagues of the CPF, I mean, we have a lot of things to do, and we should do it soon. And finally, if you listen to what has been said this morning, we all say the same thing. So maybe we should stop saying it and start doing it.
Thank you very much indeed, Robert. Thank you very much indeed. Well, you mentioned forests and peace as a vehicle of peace, and that leads us neatly on to the gentleman on your left, Dr. Yoon-Sik Park, Secretary General of the WFC Korea. And so you can report to us, Dr. Park, on action points from the high-level roundtable on the Peace Forest Initiative. And as you heard from Robert, we cannot say the same thing anymore. Okay.
Thank you. Actually, right next to me, Dr. Robert Nasi already took some part of my speech. But,
so does that mean your speech is going to be even shorter?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We found many new ideas and views in this Congress. Actually, the Peace Forest Initiative is one of them. The Peace Forest Initiative is a global initiative to promote peace and confidence between neighboring countries through transboundary cooperation on forest restoration. This high-level roundtable on peace forest initiative was a place for sharing the practices and experiences the countries have built peace through the cooperation in forest field. Forest can give us lots of benefits, not only for the human beings, as well as all living things, just like wildlife, or birds, or plants, and all things. It can absorb and store carbon and provide shelters for wildlife and give us livelihood and income source. However, the forest role never stops here. It can also contribute to peace building. The Peace Forest Initiative high-level roundtable shared these new perspectives and experiences. It also agreed to put our effort together to bring sustainability and peace through forest. The high-level roundtable was the first high-level event held in the large-scale global gathering in forest field after the Peace Forest Initiative was officially launched in 2019. The PFI event was where the potential project countries share their own national status and opinions. Especially, the participating countries were able to reaffirm the goal of Peace Forest Initiative that contribute to the United Nations Decade on Ecosystem Restoration and SDGs. This event has become a great opportunity for the PFI to move one step further as a global policy program while presenting a future direction of this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bravo to you. Dr. Park, that was the shortest speech of the day. Congratulations. You left us wanting more, but you're not going to have any more, which is fantastic. And let's remember, it's about all living things, not just human beings. Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Okay, on to Peter Gondo from the UNFF Secretariat, the Forum on Forests. Action points from the role of forests in a post-COVID-19 recovery event. And you heard what Dr. Parker said and what Robert said. If it's already being said, don't say it again. So everything you say now will be new.
Definitely.
You promise me?
I promise you. And just to start off with, just look at us.
Please bring your microphone a bit closer. Thank you.
Just look at us in this room. The COVID pandemic really had a devastating effect on our livelihoods, on our economy, and not just the health crisis, but it was really a universal crisis that showed us that we are really vulnerable.
Yeah.
But the important thing to note is actually forests came through during this period. Forests contributed in provision of materials like the PPE. We just heard from previous speakers how we took refuge in the forest for our mental health, especially for people in urban areas using this for recreation, and the spiritual aspects, especially for people living in and around forests. In fact, for the local communities and forest-dependent people, the forest provided a huge pharmacy, and people relied on those on traditional medicines from the forest. Unfortunately, we are finding that the threat is still continuing. We are deforesting, we are losing forests, so what are we going to do? The three main action points are really, the first one is to integrate forest management and forest landscape restoration into response and recovery measures. And if we are really going to ensure that our recovery is durable and resilient, then it must be environmentally sustainable and inclusive. That's the first action. The second, of course, landscape restoration and sustainable forest management are expensive ventures. We need to invest. And as Robert said, if you look at how much is going into investment on forest, it's very little. Yeah. And yet we are saying this is where the solutions are. So if we are going to prevent the emergence of new zoonotic diseases, which may arise if we continue to deforest, we'll be in trouble. So we need to invest in halting deforestation and restoring our degraded forests. Like someone said, don't let a crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
So forests here have a big opportunity to be part of a greener, healthier, and resilient future. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. You were even briefer. That's Dr. Park. That was fantastic. Really, really good. And I like the way you communicated that. Don't let a crisis go to waste. And the forest is our pharmacy. Wonderful. Okay. Posiso Sola from C4 ICRAF. Report and action points from the Sustainable Forest and Green Energy Session. That's right. Posiso, over to you.
Thank you very much. Our message is that we are behind time. Our message is that we are behind schedule. There is urgency to catalyze, to accelerate, to fast-track the energy transition to more renewable and cleaner energy sources. And for us to do this, there is no magic bullet, but we believe bioenergy is critical, and it is a better option as it results not just in managing and ensuring that we sustainably manage forests, but it also results in major socioeconomic outcomes and benefits for most of the poor communities. Universal access to energy presupposes that universal access to clean energy presupposes that we have to replace traditional biomass energies. Unfortunately, this remains a fallacy and a dream for 2.4 billion people around the world who actually depend on traditional solid biomass fuels, especially for those in sub-Saharan Africa. Because for us to do this, we need to develop, we need to invest, we need to deploy, and we need to improve the production and the utilization of these traditional biomass energies, which means improve the whole value chain. And as well as providing alternatives within the forest agricultural landscape and not just depending only on forests. And for us to be able to do this, we need a comprehensive policy framework so that it can ensure sustainability, including coordination across the silos, which include energy and forests. But then for these policies to be effective, they have to be evidence-based. We need data. Unfortunately, right now, this data is lacking, especially in Africa. The last point is, therefore, we need stronger collaboration, coordination, cooperation across UN agencies and other partners, the private sector, for stronger linkages in actually handling energy, especially the energy and food systems nexus, because there is no food security without energy security for many around the world. And in particular, we have to actually do this as we deploy bioenergy to achieve SDGs, net zero growth, and leave no one behind. Thank you.
Posiso, thank you very much indeed. Third person in a row to have delivered all her remarks in under 3 minutes. Fantastic. But we are behind time. You said this is urgent, and a lot of this transition is a pipe dream for around 2.4 billion people, you said. And I remember you saying that in the session. We need to develop, invest, and deploy. Now to Anali Bustos, Monte Alegre Natural Reserve, University of Buenos Aires. So report and action points from the special event, The Future. There we are. Look at these children. Ha ha, what a beautiful picture. It reminds me of me when I was about 5. Yes. Yes, how I looked. Investing in young forestry professionals, but I didn't have all forests around me. I was in urban Manchester. There you go. That's why I'm like this now. The future is now investing in young forestry professionals and career development. Anali, over to you.
Thanks, Henry. My name is Analia. I'm from Argentina, and I will speak Spanish from now because I want to honor my Latin American roots. Voy a hablar en nombre de todos los jóvenes profesionales actuales y potenciales de
I would like to take this opportunity to present The Future is Now, investing in young forestry professionals and career development. The whole world is changing very quickly, and so in finding solutions, we must be aligned with this pace. There could be a wide variety of opinions, and many of the stakeholders participating at the Congress is becoming more diversified as well. We look forward to young professionals joining the area of forestry so that we can live up to future challenges. In particular, we need to be able to share the knowledge and experience of young professionals. We need to make sure that they can flourish and become leaders in our area. Currently, for the young professionals, we need to invest. We should not only make financial investments, but we also need to make sure that we invest in the career development and capacity building of young professionals. We need to be mindful of the visions of young professionals, and we need to include them in decision-making processes. We also need to make sure that the young professionals feel confident by making investments into them. We could provide mentorship through professional organizations as private entities. Professional development programs have always been effective in developing the capacity of young professionals, and therefore we need to expand such programs and opportunities. In conducting work related to forestry, we need to further professional areas. We need to first take into consideration that the wage levels are low, and so we need to normalize the wage levels, taking into consideration other professional areas. We also need to communicate the merits and attractiveness of professionals in forestry. We also need to enable young professionals to share information amongst them and provide platforms for cooperation. Last but not least, at times, we need to focus on the fact that we need to recover the health of our earth for the younger generation. That's only half true. What is important is now. We need to focus on the fact that the quality of life now is also very important. So, in order for us to change the now, we have to change our mindsets. In order to achieve this, we need to overcome challenges together and collaborate. We need to make sure that these actions are put into reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annalie. That was wonderful there. I love this idea of, we need to communicate and really invest in those young forestry professionals, especially if it's seen as a Cinderella career. Do we have any supplementary thoughts? Somebody who thinks maybe we've missed something, you want to add something, you want to react to one of the contributions you've heard? If not, then we will move on and I will release Block 4A from their captivity on stage, and you are released. Thank you very much for your wonderful contributions. Excellent, thank you very much indeed. And now for our final block, Block 4B. I'm going to name them, and as it's the final block, I want you to really raise the roof. This is the culmination of a fantastic week of activity. I would like to invite to the stage Carlos Faropa, Director, Forest General Direction Ministry of Meat, Agriculture and Fishing from Uruguay. Elizabeth Simadala, President of the Eastern Africa Farmers Federation. Mokena Makeka, Principal Dahlberg Advisors. Emmeline Cheney, Team Leader and Senior Technical Advisor on Forest and Climate Finance in Asia Pacific, UNEP. And Cecile Njebet, Founder and President of the African Women's Network for Community Management of Forests and the 2022 Wangari Maathai Forest Champion. Wow! That's right, just wave to your public. The superstar of forests, wave to your public. Like the Queen, just, there we go. Our Empress of Forests. All right, so this is the final block. So let's make it even better. Let's raise the roof. Okay, Carlos, we want you to report and give us some action points on the special event. There we are, the contribution of forest circular bioeconomy to sustainable development. Over to you.
Thank you. It's an honor to present conclusions of a very qualified panel. And we are presenting 6 action points that we think that are one of the more of the push and speed, more forest and more quality improvement and management of the forest. These are forests and forestry are central in achieving the new circular bioeconomy paradigm, being our most important biological infrastructure and should be part of national sustainable bioeconomy strategy. Forests can play catalytic role in the transmission to bioeconomy if coherent cross-sectoral policies and joint strategy are put in place, together public and private. The forest-based economy contributes to the decarbonization of society, as renewable forest products both store carbon and substitute for more emissions-intensive products. New opportunities for emerging forest products are rising thanks to the extraordinary scientific advantages and innovation in the sector. To further strengthen the shift from fossil-based materials to biomass and bio-based materials is necessary to de-risk private investment, but balance public and private interest and translate this balance into integrate public-private finances approach, but public scopes at the end. The sustainable use of wood can reduce the carbon footprints of multitude of sectors, including construction, biochemicals, and textile. Clear and measurable sector-specific target, like example, percent of building made out of wood, will help boost the transition to the bioeconomy. Further research capacity buildings and knowledge exchange is required to ensure the necessary quality standard and respect legal requirements today. Current statistics are not designed to measure bioeconomy and covers only classic sectors. So, in our country, a case study was chosen as a case study for difference this case and measuring bioeconomy, and it was not easy to do it. My country is Uruguay, sorry. For effective bioeconomy monitoring, we need to identify clear monitoring objectives and collaborate across the sector to better integrate. A growing bioeconomy can empower communities and indigenous people by creating green and good jobs, enable local value addition, and developing local markets. So these are the scope of the sustainable development of the UN. Opportunities created of non-good forests value chains must be sized to support uplifting of marginalized people, the conservation, and sustainable use, biodiversity, and expansion of the forest sector beyond wood. To achieve a circular bioeconomic transition, more forests and trees are needed, are currently existing. Therefore, we must conserve, manage better, and actively restore forests. And I write that. The expected increase in demand in forest products will require an expansion of the resource base through sustainable plantation, agroforestry, and other suitable land use systems, and is expected to further increase the value of forests. Finally, but not less important, look us, we are people from different countries with different situations in our own nations, but we are a lot of common points of view. Okay. So this is one of the big final conclusions for me in this World Congress Forestry.
We have a shared interest, Carlos, definitely a shared interest.
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you, Carlos. Yes? Every time I look at Elizabeth, I think of what she went through to get here. I won't go into any details, but it's wonderful that you are here and that you've made such a powerful contribution during your time at the Congress. So you're going to report and give us action points of the special event. I was at this one, Rural Finance and Forest and Farm Producers Enterprises at the Center of the Green Recovery. Elizabeth, your time starts now.
Yeah, Thank you very much. It's really an absolute honor for me to present the action points of the special event on rural finance. We started by acknowledging the important role that producer organizations play in terms of food security, noting that smallholder farmers and family farmers produce over 80% of the world's food. They also have an important role to play in terms of ecosystem restoration and climate mitigation. And given that role, we thought that they need to come together as strong entities and farmers associations, forest and farm producer organizations. So we need to assist and help them in getting mobilized for them to have a collective, a strong, and a coordinated voice. We don't only stop at having them form strong organizations, but we also need to make sure that we build their capacity and the capacity of the farm and forest producer organizations for them to be able to offer sustainable services to their membership. In terms of financing, we noted that financing has never been enough. So there is need to have a multi-stakeholder approach and build a strong and mutual partnership at different levels to make sure that we create synergies but also leverage on each other in terms of sharing knowledge, experiences, and opportunities. We noted that also actors need to come together, to speak together, to find solutions together. On access to climate financing, there is need for national and regional FFPOs to have access to financing. And not only access to financing, but information on the procedure on how to access such funds should be available and accessible by them. The capacity of banks and impact investors, we realized that they don't really understand FFPOs. So their internal capacity needs to be built for them to understand the risk around forestry and agriculture in general. But also the FFPOs need to have financial literacy. Yeah. There's need for a mechanism on how to support these FFPOs, for example, on their first encounter on accessing loans. We need branded financing, and the technical assistance facility should be part of this, but also innovative financing to be able to bypass the barriers that are attached to access to financing by FFPOs. Youth and women's role is very critical, so we also need targeted interventions to make sure that we have schemes that are targeting women and youth, and also innovative mechanism to have them have direct access to climate financing and financial schemes. And lastly, FFPOs must be paid for their contribution to maintaining the landscape and providing food security to ensure that their businesses are sustained and are put to scale. The FFPOs are committed to accelerate and double their role in restoration of our environment for a sustainable future. We are the solution, and together we can.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. That's great. That's right. I remember from the session, we've got to try and de-risk, but there needs to be, although for example, the women working there, let's say they're in an FFP, or maybe they need the support, the financial literacy, but also the banks and the funding institutions, they also need to change their minds or shift their mindset and to meet these women or these FFPOs halfway. At the moment, they're not. Right. Let's move on to the gentleman on your left, Mokena Makeka, Principal Dahlberg Advisors. And Mokena, you're going to report and give us some action points of the forum, Sustainable Investments in Forests for People, Profit and Nature. So yes, sustain us with some investment.
In order to unlock sustainable investments, I'd like this audience to think of three key words: opportunity, abundance, and urgency. There's an opportunity for us to develop sustainable climate-smart plantations, an opportunity to unlock the abundance of the forest, and an urgency to address landscape restoration. This will be required in order to unlock this potential for sustainable investments. This also includes agroforestry and agroforestation. The important message being, if we look at demographic change between now, 2030 and 2050, it is very important for us to create a new abundance to respond to these growing needs. Mobilizing finance to implement this will be critical, and the private sector has a key part to play here, not just as passive agents who comply with regards to the regulations of the state, but really in terms of their ability to forge partnerships with communities, to drive entrepreneurship on the ground, but to also catalyze new forms of arrangements and engagements with regards to various actors. Green finance, therefore, will become essential in this space. There's been lots of discussion both at COP, last couple of years, the transition from sustainable targets, from CSI towards ESG. The reality is that this innovation needs to continue. Green finance needs to find new and other engaging mechanisms to engage with this opportunity and abundance and the urgency that I described. But it's also important to remember the role of restoration. Plantations will have a critical part in this future, adaptation and mitigation of existing forest resources, a better understanding of the value of ecosystem resources, and how do blended finance models come into the picture so that the value of forests actually increase, so that livelihoods, wages, and the viability of these ideas become far much more attractive. So it suggests new investment vehicles. It further suggests that new projects will need to emerge and that there's an abundant opportunity for innovation between now and 2030 to create new proactive financing measures, a different sort of investment approach, and one which can ultimately lead us towards a more sustainable future. In closing, climate-smart, sustainable wood value chains are dependent on agile, active investment that understands opportunity, abundance, and urgency. Let's grow our cities, and let's restore the planet. I thank you.
Very good. 2 minutes 30. Bang on. Brilliant. Well done. Thank you very much. I like that. The idea of this agile creature that is constantly on the lookout for new investment vehicles, innovation, and wants to transform things, a mindset shift. Some people mentioned mindset shifts earlier. Emmeline Cheney, Team Leader and Senior Technical Advisor on Forest and Climate Finance in Asia Pacific from UNEP. Hello, Emmeline. You're going to talk to us and you're going to report and give us some action points of the forum, Fire Management Forum, Wildfires Beyond Forests.
Thanks, Henry. All right, so the first message that came out of this Fire Management Forum is that the frequency, severity, and extent of wildfires are increasing due to climate change and human pressure on forests. Landscape and forest wildfires are only expected to intensify, unfortunately, and they must be tackled at local, national, cross-border, and global levels. This requires strategic fire management, detection, prevention, and suppression, coordinated approaches, research, and international cooperation. The second message that came out of the forum is that wildfire management goes well beyond forests, indeed. It includes infrastructure, health, transport, tourism, and many other sectors affected by fire. So cross-sectoral action is needed. We've heard this many times this morning and throughout the Congress. We need integrated fire management approaches to adapt to ongoing change in wildfire risk. We need to work across geographies with multiple disciplines, addressing multiple risks and engaging with a broad range of stakeholders. This will require networks, fire management networks. Some are existing, we also need some new ones to enable regular engagement, relationship building, and exchanges. The priority actions of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015-2030 are more relevant today than ever. We need them to better understand wildfire disaster risks, strengthen governance to manage these risks, invest in risk reduction for resilience, and enhance fire preparedness for effective response. To address this huge challenge, the Global Fire Management Platform will be there to build global technical competence and integrate the capacity of all partners. Emerging mechanisms such as AFFIRM, Assuring the Future of Forests with Integrated Risk Management Mechanism, AFFIRM, will also help advance integrated fire management. And my main takeaway, final point, is really that we need to better understand the factors driving wildfires, But above all, we need a shift. We need to shift our focus from emergency responses to fire and start investing a lot more in reducing the risk of fire, in getting prepared for them, and in facilitating recovery. Thank you.
Emily, thank you very much indeed. Another mindset shift. That's right. Prevention is always better than cure. Thank you. Now, there's one more person. Who is she? Now, I saw her in the hotel kind of breakfast area 2 or 3 times before we actually spoke. I didn't realize I was sitting opposite a star, a champion of the forest. Perhaps I can even call her an empress, because she is the Forest Champions panel, and she's going to report and give us action points of the special session Wangari Maathai Award Ceremony. Please put your hands together with great enthusiasm for Cecile Njebet, Wangari Maathai Forest Champion, the winner. Oh yes, there she is, and quite rightly she's smiling. In fact, she is so keen to speak at length, she's coming here to ease me out of my position. But I will not be standing too far away.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been an honor to join the World Forestry Congress, and I received the Wangari Maathai Forest Champion Award. This is a very special time in my life and in the life of the women of our network we call the African Women Network for Community Management of Forests, REFACOF. As many of you know, the Collaborative Partnership on Forests, CPF, launched the first Wangari Maathai Award in 2012 to honor and commemorate the impact of the late Kenyan environmentalist who championed forest issues across the globe. Professor Wangari Maathai was the first African woman to win a Nobel Peace Prize for her contribution to sustainable development, democracy, and peace. Allow me to share briefly my brief and very memorable contact with Professor Wangari Maathai. I met the late Professor Wangari Maathai in 2009 when she visited our small organization known as Cameroon Ecology. That was one of the first 6 grantees of the first Congo Basin Forest Fund. She later raised awareness on our activities in the UN Climate Change Conference in Copenhagen, accompanied with the authorities of the city of Edea and all the sectoral administrations. After this conference, she visited Bopo, one of the community forests in Cameroon, as well as the beneficiaries of the funding. As we spent the day together, she explained to me her love for forests, for nature, the importance of preserving the environment, the danger of climate change for humanity, the human responsibility for the destruction of the environment, the importance of forests for the environment, the contribution of women, and so many more things. As we separated, she told me this: "This is the mission I leave to you. Mobilize all African women, sensitize them in planting trees. Tell them to plant fruit trees. They will bring them many benefits. They will improve the nutrition of their children and their families. They will generate income through the sale of surplus fruit, and the trees will help mitigate the negative impact of climate change. The entire world will benefit from their actions. So get the women, plant the trees. If you need money, I'll give you the money." These words have remained engraved in my memory and her visit was the trigger for my commitment to reforestation, conservation, the fight against illegal logging, the fight for women's rights on land and forest. So when I talk about this short moment with this African and world icon, you can't imagine how much she marked my life. You can understand how much I regret her passing, the premature passing, and you can understand how I feel since yesterday. This prize for me is all this: the recognition of the strategic actions of the forest, the strategic actors of the forestry sector gathered within the CPF, the motivation to continue this work in memory of Wangari Maathai, the encouragement to continue this difficult work with rural women, and finally have support that Wangari Maathai has promised me that has become a reality through this award. It is very unfortunate that she was never able to witness this moment as she passed away so early. Our goal at Refakov is to plant 20 million trees for the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. In other words, some brave African women are committed to planting so many trees on the continent as their contribution to restore degraded ecosystem. Of course, we all know that they do not have enough resources to carry out this. However, I believe that this award will send their plea to those who can support them in this noble cause. I once again thank you for this precious award, and I also for listening to me, and thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Fantastic, Cecile. I love the way Cecile paused there for a moment, as if you wanted to take her photograph. Don't worry, we'll do a group photo in a minute or two's time. But I just want to thank all the speakers who've joined us today, both to summarize the week so far, the 15th World Forestry Congress. It's a difficult task, given just how much has been done and the intricacy of the import of the discussions and events that have taken place. Now, for those of you who haven't yet spoken, but who came to the events during the past 5 days and who feel that there's something missing, or you want to add to something or comment, or just to say, hey, I'm here and I'm a human being and I love trees, you can speak now or forever hold your peace. But you have to, yes, gentleman there.
Aloha, my friends.
Aloha, hello.
I'm Jim Chamberlain. I'm from the U.S. And I am inspired by everything that I have heard this past week. At the same time, I'm saddened. And I'm saddened because by focusing everything on wood, we forget the many things that come out of forests that are not wood-based. We forget that forests are the source of food and medicine for billions of people. The bioeconomy is a new concept. It is fresh in our minds. It is the time now to mold it, to expand it, to include the many, many other products that forests provide billions and billions of people. Those people will remain disenfranchised and marginalized in our global society until we embrace these many, many products and resources that are out there. Forests are much more than trees.
Thank you very much. Well, to be honest,
much more
I've been to a lot of sessions.
And carbon. Thank
you very much for your point. In some sessions, I've heard people talking about a basket of products and a range of products, not just the wood and other things. But the point is well made. Thank you very much for emphasizing it again. So, any other further point? Oh, yes, somebody there, yes. Put your hand up. Please tell us who you are and make your point brief. Thank you. Yes?
Yes. Hello. My name is Dani from Cambodia. One word that I would like to say here is let's plant the tree. Plant the trees as much as possible and plant the tree everywhere as you can. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. That's wonderful. And do we have one more little contribution from somebody? This is going to be the last one in this session. Let's have a look. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Where? Oh, yes, okay. Make yourself known and come to one of the microphones. And as this is the last one, I'm going to put some pressure on you. Make us feel good.
My name is Luciana Varcuja. I'm an architect from Brazil, and I think there was a lot of talk on wood, like our colleague mentioned, but it's important to raise that this push for timber construction we need to be aware of the potential of forced labor increase also in this industry. So I think we have to do much more due diligence, being aware of the sources so that this implementation in this field can come also not with a increase in a social impact that already happens in constructions with the forced labor. So we all should be aware of that too.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Certification people have mentioned. Thank you very much indeed for that final point. Now, I've got a point of information before we close. There was some confusion about the timing of the afternoon session. Some people were told it was at 1400, as in 2 p.m., and other people were told it starts at 1500, 3 p.m. The confirmed time for the afternoon session, which I believe is the final session, is 3 p.m., 1500. So it is 3 p.m., not 2 p.m. There was a mistake in one of the programs. The afternoon session starts at 3 p.m., i.e. 1500 this afternoon. Great. So I wish you an excellent final day here at the 15th World Food Congress. Food? I'm hungry. For forestry. But the forest can provide me some nutrition and some food. I sincerely hope you will bring some of the lessons you've learned and inspiration from this session back home with you. I know I certainly will be. I've got a platform and several outlets, and I'll be using the inspiration from this in exactly that way. So thank you very much indeed. I want to ask the speakers, all the speakers who came back and who reported, to come up on stage for a group photo. Thank you very much indeed. And the way forward, well, what is the way forward? Everybody plant a tree, each one teach one, due diligence, bioeconomy, all of that, and keep the faith. Thank you very much indeed. Speakers on the stage, and thank you everybody, and see you this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed. Come on, put your hands together. Put your hands together for a wonderful session. Thank you very much indeed.